This is a horror story from Taiwan. I live in an old 4-story apartment building, a kind still seen often in Taiwan. The narrow space between buildings means that both the front and back balconies are enclosed in traditional iron grills. The complex designs of the iron bars resemble a heavy cage. When I first moved in, I found it oddly reassuring, almost like a protective barrier. My routine is simple. I leave early and return late. After coming home, I like to stand on the back balcony, sipping a cup of coffee, letting my mind drift. Sometimes, I step out onto the front balcony for a change of view. The night breeze slips through the iron bars, occasionally bringing the muffled sounds of my neighbors. It's just the low hum of apartment life, the insignificant background noise of coexistence. Or at least, that's how it used to feel, until recently, when the atmosphere shifted, and those familiar sounds began to feel strangely unsettling. It started with my upstairs neighbor, whose behavior seemed off. Day or night, peculiar noises echoed from above. Metal scraping, slow and deliberate. At other times, a soft, dragging sound, as if someone were crawling on the floor. Most unnerving, however, was the timing of these noises, appearing often at 2 or 3 in the morning. Not loud, but just enough to worm their way into my consciousness, demanding attention. I told myself it was merely the sound of an old building settling and brushed it off. But then, one night, the ordinary turned inexplicably surreal. That evening, I was on the balcony as usual, letting the darkness wash over me. Outside, a fine drizzle fell, raindrops pattering against the iron bars in a steady rhythm. Just as I turned to go back inside, a shadow slipped into the corner of my vision. I stopped, heart jolting, and whipped my head around. Nothing. The balcony was empty. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be rational. It was just a trick of light, I told myself, the reflection of raindrops. But I couldn't shake the prickling sensation of being watched. Back inside, I sat in the living room, heart pounding. That moment on the balcony had felt so real, like someone was just outside, pressing up against the iron bars, eyes fixed intently on me. A few days passed, and the tension only grew. One night, around 1 in the morning, I was jerked from sleep by a strange sound. A soft, dragging scrape, slow and methodical, from the balcony. Holding my breath, I peeled back the covers and crept toward the window. Outside, the drizzle continued, casting faint halos under the street lamps. My pulse quickened, and I squinted, trying to pierce the dim light. And then, I froze. There was someone on the balcony. It was no trick of the light, no illusion of rain. A figure clung to the iron bars, suspended upside down like a spider, arms and legs twisted around the bars. His head hung low, hidden in shadow from my vantage point, but I could see his eyes, 2 dim glints that gleamed faintly in the dark. My breath hitched, and my mind went blank. Those eyes, hollow and unmoving, bored straight into me, as if waiting. My body was paralyzed, pinned to the spot by a creeping chill that sank deep into my bones. Seconds passed, or maybe minutes. Then, in a single, smooth movement, the figure let out a dry, raspy chuckle that slithered into my ears. Without breaking eye contact, he began to crawl backward, limbs rigid yet fluid, retreating into the shadows above like some twisted upside-down arachnid. Only when he melted into the darkness did I finally snap out of my daze, stumbling backward, nearly falling in my panic. That night, sleep was impossible. The image of that figure lingered, burnt into my memory. The following day, I tried to ask around about the upstairs neighbor, but the responses were chilling. No one had seen anyone in that apartment for years. Some claimed it had been vacant for ages. A deep unease rooted itself within me, but I couldn't abandon reason. I stayed vigilant, listening carefully each night for those strange sounds. The soft dragging, the subtle scraping, the occasional murmur that seemed to slither down from above. Eventually, my desperation led me to an elderly resident in the neighborhood. He was in his 70s or 80s, and after I recounted my experiences, he gave a long sigh.
That apartment has indeed been empty for a long time. The previous tenant, he was a peculiar man, used to hang upside down, practicing some sort of esoteric meditation, or so they say.
The memory of those glowing eyes flashed across my mind, sending a shiver down my spine.
What happened to him?
I asked, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. The old man lowered his gaze.
He died some time ago, fell from his balcony. They say he broke his neck.
An icy dread washed over me, and I couldn't help glancing back toward my own balcony. In the shadows beyond the iron bars, something seemed to shift faintly. I blinked, but there was nothing there. That night, the rain began again, and as I lay awake, the familiar sound crept back. Slow, deliberate, scratching against the iron bars of the balcony. If you want to see my videos faster, please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates.